Dances with Wolves' expansive vistas and compelling narrative may have mesmerized viewers, but the enchantment in front of the camera reveals the story more deeply. There were many memorable instances during the film's production, from casting difficulties to surprise success of the picture, that even the most ardent fans may not be aware of. What trade secrets did the crew maintain? And how did these decisions behind closed doors affect the finished product? Come along as we unearth the little-known details that made Dances with Wolves a timeless cinematic classic. When it first started, no one wanted to publish the novel. Screenwriter Michael Blake came up with the concept for Dances with Wolves after being inspired by the Plains Indians while reading about them. He then presented the idea to Kevin Costner. After meeting at an acting class, Costner suggested that he make the idea into a book rather than a script to attract more interest from the studios. This was done in the hopes of attracting more audiences. Blake wrote the book over several months and then sent it to several publishers. Fawcett, a small publisher, agreed to publish it after more than 30 other publishers had rejected it. Unfortunately, nobody was interested in its publication. Before accepting the position directly, Costner approached other directors. After Kevin Costner consented to participate in the project, he sent scripts to 3 well-known directors who had chosen to stay unidentified. The disappointment he experienced resulted from his expectation that at least one of them would be interested in a suitable fit for the position. As far as Costner is concerned, everybody wanted to alter a particularly significant aspect of the movie. Some wanted to get rid of the opening Civil War sequence, some thought it was too long, he explained to reporters. In the end, Kevin Costner decided to direct the movie himself. Somebody thought it shouldn't be a white love interest, that it would be cliché. For the most part, Costner did his stunts. It's estimated by the producer, Jim Wilson, that the actor-director was responsible for around 90% of all the writing, shooting, fighting, and dancing that his character did. The fact that he was both the star and the director of the picture caused the other production crew members to be anxious, even though this was an incredible accomplishment. An incident that occurred during the production of the scene depicting the buffalo hunt resulted in his being thrown from his horse, which caused everyone on set to feel a sense of dread. The good news is that Costner sustained no injuries and continued with the action. It was the all-time highest-grossing Western. Even though Westerns had been a genre that had been gaining popularity over the preceding decades, Dances with Wolves was instrumental in reviving and modernizing the genre. During the 6 months it was released in theaters, it grossed $184 million in the United States, significantly more than the previous most successful Westerns. After over 25 years, it continues to be the highest-grossing film of all time, just narrowly surpassing True Grit. Nevertheless, even though it was extremely profitable, the movie never reached the top of the box office charts. Cosner is now an honorary member of the Sioux. Despite not everyone agreeing, many Sioux people expressed their gratitude to Cosner for directing the film, which depicted the tranquil day-to-day existence of their tribe. The tribe made Cosner an honorary member in recognition of his contributions. At the induction ceremony, he was presented with a hand-woven quilt and a feather to wear in his hair. After several years had passed, he made the unfortunate decision to purchase several hundred acres in the Black Hills of South Dakota and declare his intentions to construct a home there. This caused him to lose favor with a number of the Sioux. Fortunately, he didn't follow through with the plan in 2013. The buffalo hunt needed careful preparation. When it came to filming the buffalo hunt, it's remarkable that there was no utilization of any kind of magic in the movie. It was a herd of more than 3,500 buffalo moving across the plain. Each day, the crew would have the chance to film the stampede, but if they were lucky, they would only have one opportunity. In the beginning, they had to gather the animals together, and according to the producer, Jim Wilson, the trucks began herding the buffalo at 5 o'clock in the morning in hopes that they would be in position by 11. To film, they had 20 Wranglers, a helicopter, and 10 pickup trucks with mounted cameras. The dialogue coach for the movie was a special person. Throughout the movie's production, converting more than a quarter of Blake's script into the Sioux Lakota language became necessary. Although some individuals would have preferred to avoid the hassle and have everything communicated in English, this was not the situation in this instance. The fact that there were so few persons still alive who were fluent in the Lakota language, let alone those who could translate it, was one of the most significant problems. Despite this, Cosner was able to locate Doris Leader Charge, a professor at the Sinta Gleska University in South Dakota, responsible for teaching the Lakota language. The script was delivered to her, and she got it translated within 3 weeks. After that, she was given the role of Pretty Shield, the wife of Chief Ten Bears, and she also became the dialogue coach for the entire production. The relationship between Cosner and writer Michael Blake was intriguing. When Blake was still in the process of working on Dances with Wolves, Cosner made numerous attempts to get his friend to collaborate with several different studios. In a later interview, Cosner disclosed that Blake's argument with the agents was the source of the difficulty experienced during the entire process. He claims, "I started to lose patience with him. From then on, their relationship began to deteriorate, and Blake eventually relocated to Arizona to wash dishes at a Chinese restaurant while working on his book." When Cosner finally agreed to read it, he was stunned and stated, "It was the clearest idea for a movie I'd ever read." The actor's Lakota wasn't perfect. Even though Doris Leader Charge did an incredible job teaching Lakota to numerous individuals who knew nothing about the language before shooting, some aspects were left out. Lakota is a significantly tricky dialect to master, and it even has gendered speech, so some words have different meanings for both men and women. The gendered speech was left out because this would have been too complicated to incorporate. Those who saw the film and spoke the language found it humorous that the male warriors talked like women. Cosner's daughter made an appearance. Annie Cosner, the daughter of Kevin Costner, played a small role in the film as a child, playing the character Stands with a Fist. In the dream sequence, she can be seen running away from the group of Pawnee that killed her family. While she's running, she looks over both of her shoulders. Costner told her to look over her left shoulder, but she was too young to know the difference between her left and right shoulder. She was only 6 years old when the film was being produced. The film aimed short-term benefits for Orion Pictures. Orion Pictures was not doing well as a production company in the 1980s, even though it had achieved significant success with films such as RoboCop, Platoon, and Caddyshack. It was doing terribly. When Dances with Wolves was first released, the company's stock had dropped by 50%, and the company was a staggering $50 million in debt. Although Dances with Wolves was extremely successful and helped the company keep afloat, it was not enough. The company filed for bankruptcy just 1 year later, and MGM eventually acquired it. A sequel is available. Although it hasn't been adapted for film or TV yet, there is a sequel novel to Dances with the Wolves titled The Holy Road. Blake published the book in 2001 and continues following John Dunbar, now a total Sioux warrior, as he tries to protect the tribe from the encroaching white settlers. The novel was praised for portraying westward expansion and the struggles the Native Americans faced. While it seems ideal for a movie or a miniseries, nothing has come to fruition. For Cosner, the movie was an investment. Unfortunately, the film ran way over budget, resulting in Cosner digging into his pockets to make up the initial $15 million budget. Because of this, there were rumors the film would be a Western disaster such as Heaven's Gate, with some people even referring to it as Kevin's Gate. Regardless, the film went on to win the first Best Picture Oscar for a Western since Cimarron in 1931. Costner's investment paid off, and he earned an estimated $40 million. Certain characters are inspired by actual persons. Although there was a real John Dunbar, a pro-Native American missionary who made allies with the Pawnee in the 1800s, he has no connection with the character in the movie. However, Stands with a Fist was based on a natural person. Her character was inspired by Cynthia Ann Parker, a young girl kidnapped by the Comanche in 1836 when she was just 10 years old. She lived with the tribe until 1860 when the Texas Rangers recaptured her. Significant production delays occurred. There were countless delays during production due to the unpredictable weather of the South Dakota plains, working with real wolves, and the complexity of the Native American battle scenes. However, the epic bison hunt sequence was the film's most challenging aspect. This scene took over 3 weeks and required 100 Native American stunt riders, not to mention a natural stampeding herd of thousands of bison. However, it wasn't all for nothing and is considered one of the most breathtaking scenes in cinematic history. It was an extremely challenging shoot. Although the movie may look like it was filmed in one central location, that's far from the truth. Filming occurred in more than 30 locations throughout South Dakota and Wyoming. The script required 3,500 live buffalo, 3 dozen teepees, 300 horses, and enough Native American extras to make up a relatively large village. To top it all off, the weather drastically changed during the July to November shoot, ranging from just 20 to over 100 degrees. The reason for Fort Sedgwick's abandonment. After Dunbar requests that he be stationed in the west, he's sent to Fort Sedgwick. However, upon his arrival, he discovered that the outpost was abandoned and falling apart. The film never explains how the outpost came in such ragged condition, but a deleted scene does. The scene demonstrates that the garrison there had abandoned the location after their horses were stolen. They survived several Native American attacks and were waiting for a supply train and reinforcements that would never come. The soldiers then abandoned their post shortly before Dunbar arrived. It was temperamental to work with the wolves. The producers used Buck and Teddy to play 2 Socks, the wolf that Dunbar befriends. Although these wolves were considered trained and docile, that didn't mean they were easy to work with. The handlers needed a lot of patience and meat scraps to get the wolves to cooperate. One of the trainers was even bitten by a wolf, so Kevin Costner had to step in to complete the scene. Kevin Costner dispersed personal funds. The film was expensive, and Costner had to pay a little more than the budget to finish the production. How much more was it? Well, with all the bison and wolves and then having to figure out how to film outdoors, things exceeded the budget of $15 million. However, that did not deter Costner. Ultimately, he ended up paying an additional $3 million to finish the movie. This demonstrates how much he wanted this thing to be completed. Costner wanted an older woman to play Stands with a Fist. While most movies depict an older man falling in love with a younger woman, Kevin Costner wanted to take a different approach. He wanted a mature and older-looking woman to play the role of Stands with a Fist, the white woman raised with the Sioux tribe who assists Dunbar in becoming a part of the community while they're simultaneously falling in love. Mary McDonnell, age 37, was ultimately selected for the role. She effortlessly masters her Lakota lines and is convincing in her attempt to relearn English for the film. Her performance garners an Academy Award nomination and praise from critics and audience alike. Men and women's marketing campaigns were run separately. One of the main reasons Dances with Wolves was such a success was that its aspects appealed to both men and women. To attract men and women separately, the advertisement campaign was tweaked to create different trailers and print ads that were alluring to the specific genders. The female-focused marketing campaign focused on the love interest between Dunbar and Stands with a Fist, whereas the male campaign focused on the film's Wild West and gunslinging aspects. The actors didn't actually ride bareback. Historically, the Sioux rode the majority of their horses bareback. However, this posed a greater risk of sliding off the horses for the actors, particularly during dramatic chase scenes. As a result, the reenactors and horse wranglers suggested that the actors use saddles. The producers agreed with this recommendation. As long as we don't notice, that's fine. The actors used saddles and covered them with blankets to make it appear like they were riding bareback. The actors' performance was accurate on screen, and they did not experience any significant accidents. 250 Civil War reenactors worked on set. For the opening scene of the Civil War, the producers hired 250 Civil War reenactors. One of them was Jim Hatzel, who had his first movie, Dances with Wolves. He got the job by sending a photo of himself dressed in cavalry clothing to Andy Cannon, the coordinator of the reenactment. Because many of the reenactors had military discipline, they worked much more efficiently than the staff had anticipated. They saved Kevin Costner time and money by working quickly and teaching him military stances, such as how to salute. In a sense, the reenactors served as unofficial technical advisors. Graham was wearing baloney shoes. The host of the Red Green Show asked Graham Greene his thoughts on Dances with Wolves when he was being interviewed for the show. After hearing this, Greene added, "The native guy was fine. The Oscar ought to have been awarded to him. It's possible that he ought to have been awarded the Academy Award for his work to help enhance his character. He needed to assist in making kicking birds' backache appear more believable, so he inserted smooth bologna slices into your sneakers. That demonstrates a deep commitment to a role." The Buffalo Stampede began with an Oreo. Jim Wilson, the producer, had difficulty getting his bison to create a stampede. With a total of 3,500 bison, 2 of them were domesticated and given the names Mammoth and Cody. According to Wilson, Cody was completely obsessed with Oreo cookies. You could be 100 yards away, pull out an Oreo, and he would take off like a bullet straight for you, the speaker said further. When the buffalo runs over a fallen boy, the buffalo chases after an Oreo cookie. The action was kicked off by Wilson, who waved one Oreo in Cody's face, and the other bison followed suit. 10 Bears holds a Conquistador helmet. In one of the scenes, 10 Bears and Dunbar talk about the men who came during the time of his grandfather's grandfather. Dunbar is the subject of the conversation. Following that, he demonstrates to Dunbar a morion, which is a historically accurate conquistador helmet. Beginning in the 15th century and continuing into the 19th century, Spanish soldiers known as conquistadors were responsible for exploring the Americas. Considering the history 10 Bears presents, it would be logical that the most common period for wearing morions was between the 16th and 17th century. The helmet that was seen in the movie was most likely a prop and not an artifact. Nonetheless, it does hint at what occurred to the Sioux tribe a long time before the timeline of the film took place. The helmet was seen in the movie. Cosner made huge profits. Although Cosner may have contributed a few additional millions to the film, he unquestionably made all that money back and then some. He invested $3 million, and the return on his investment would be more than 3 times that amount. As soon as the movie became successful at the box office, Cosner began to notice that money was coming in like a flood. There would be a profit of more than $40 million for the performer. It was a fortunate decision on his part to give them the $3 million. Oscars thought it was great. During that particular year, Dances with Wolves was honored with Film Editing, Sound, and Cinematography Awards. This is a remarkable achievement when one considers the amount of time and work invested by everyone to make this film as legendary as it is. Although we've gone over a few specifics of the Academy accolades and the accolades that this movie was awarded, we have not yet provided you with all the information there is to know about it. Would it be possible for you to predict that this film was awarded 3 Academy Awards, taking home awards in some of the most prestigious categories? Scene out of sequence. At the film's end, Kevin Costner arrives on horseback to inform everyone that the bison have arrived. This one is one of the few shots in the film that's not in the correct sequence. Even though he's dressed in slacks and a shirt, if you look around the set, you'll notice everyone wearing heavy coats since it's chilly. This is something that you'll most likely become aware of if you have a keen eye for observing the minute details that are present in the movie. The National Film Registry has been added. The National Film Registry is an accolade designed for films that, after being released for various reasons, can greatly move people worldwide. It was a simple choice to make about Dances with Wolves. 2007 was the year that it was chosen as one of the films considered to be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. It would appear that it struck the right chord in each of the 3 categories in a concise amount of time. The question must be asked is what prevented the registry from including this film in its collection for such an extended period? The real-life characters attracted the audience's interest. The numerous methods by which the cast members added dimension to their characters were sufficient to captivate the attention of the gathered audience. Not only were they required to speak the Lakota language, but they also had to put meat in their shoes, as we just described, and much more. Those in attendance were enthralled with the specifics that went into their existence. You may have seen that in many movies released recently, the storyline may provide viewers with background information on cultures that are not widely known, which may increase their curiosity to learn more about those cultures. The skinning wasn't real. In the production, paper creatures were employed to give the impression of being very lifelike. There was a quite humorous story about the phony animals and law enforcement officials. After getting a call from someone who claimed that bison were being wounded, the police came to the scene. At the time of arrival, they were armed with their firearms drawn and ready to bring the poachers to justice. Although it was difficult for all parties concerned, the police officers decided to leave with a sense of humor after everything was sorted. Best Original Score was awarded to the music. John Barry, who also composed the music for the James Bond films, including the iconic theme song, was the one responsible for the composition of the soundtrack. Barry's contributions to Dances with Wolves, including the John Dunbar theme and the Love theme, garnered lavish praise. Additionally, the film was awarded the Academy Award for Best Original Score in 1991. The music composed by Barry was not only excellent, but it was also the first to use synthesizers in a film score. He regularly watched the movie and highlighted which aspects required additional music or drama. In addition, Barry was awarded the Academy Award for his work in films Out of Africa, The Lion in Winter, and Born Free. They could only work with the bison for one day. The crew only had one day to successfully pull off the bison scene, even though it took significant time to organize. Following that, they stayed at the ranch for 1 week. Ray Houck, a rancher from South Dakota, owned the world's largest privately held bison herd, consisting of 3,500 animals. In the week leading up to the shoot, the personnel installed several cameras throughout the ranch premises. Dummies made of wire and fur were arranged to simulate fallen animals. After that, they let the bison out 5 times for 5 shots, each lasting 8 minutes overall. The scene of the feasting was captured indoors. Following the sequence in which they hunt bison, the Sioux people get together for a feasting in the film. Dunbar and Wind in His Hair become friends and trade gifts at that location. Even though it appears to have been shot outside, the scenario was shot inside. As a result of the freezing temperatures outside, the crew decided to film the scenario inside a Quonset hut at night. The crew was in South Dakota then, and winter drew nearer quickly. To accommodate the severe weather conditions, the crew had to work around the fact that most of the film was shot outside. On set, the daughter of the cinematographer broke her hands. Dean Semler, the cinematographer for Dances with Wolves, collaborated with his daughter while working on the film set. Throughout the movie, she was one of the many required horse wranglers. Semler's horse became scared and tossed her when she was riding, causing her to break both of her wrists. This occurred while she was riding. Her efforts, on the other hand, were not in vain because her father, Dean, was honored with the Academy Award for Cinematography for his work on the film Dances with Wolves. In addition to Sellers, other crew members were hurt in the accident. As a result of dealing with animals throughout the filmmaking process, this was only one of the many issues that developed at various points. Workers had to keep adding water to the pond. When the crew was filming the scenes at Fort Sedgwick, South Dakota was going through a terrible drought. This caused the adjoining pond to dry up in a short amount of time. Every day, the workforce was required to fill the pond with water by transporting it in trucks. They did this since they didn't want any irregularities in their processes. The scenes at Fort Sedgwick were shot just outside of Fort Pierre near the Triple U Buffalo Ranch, which included all of the shots that featured bison. Given that the set was built specifically for the film and then dismantled, it's impossible to see it now. The fact that the pond does not experience a drought is a positive development. Why you need a great score. The score of a movie can either serve to make or break the movie. The music played during the filming of certain film elevates them to an incredible level, thereby contributing to the overall drama. For this film, the score was sufficient to entice a crucial individual. One of Pope John Paul II's favorite pieces of music was the theme of Dances with Wolves. It was composed by John Barry, who was also involved in the James Bond series in some capacity. It's very remarkable. Neil Young brought the goods. The production team needed to develop inventive solutions to provide the set with the fuzzy creatures required for the film, including many animals. Rock musician Neil Young was involved with one of the methods. That's right, Young contributed some animals to the filmmaking process. He contributed 2 domesticated bison to the movie, which was not a lot, but was nonetheless a contribution. Because domesticated bison are not easily accessible, this was a tremendous assistance for everyone involved. Please keep in mind that the filming of the bison sequence took more than 3 weeks. Top dollar for a bison. Bison were essential for this movie, as evidenced by the details. In addition to Neil Young contributing a couple of bison, the production team took tremendous measure to acquire 1 additional buffalo. It was an expensive thing to do. The production ultimately resulted in the creation of an animatronic bison, which was quite expensive. Not that it was a few $1,000s. Instead, that fake animal put them back $250,000. It wasn't even close to that. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon,